before reading a genuine letter shared on the condition of anonymity, here may be a good place as ever to address the vehement exhortation I have received against speaking about a religion when I am allegedly oblivious as to what makes it unlike any of the other world's religions. I present to the arbitration of the experts and to those who may share such a view the question of whether any religion can boast of secrets and retain piety. My interest lies not in what is withheld, but in what is freely offered. Not in false hope, not in hope withheld, but in guaranteed solutions. This letter is about a genuine human problem, solved in a simple way without the necessity of vigorous biblical dialectic. According to portions of the Bible, I am considered a dead man talking, and so it is within the context of humble gratitude for the stay of my execution that I frame my comments, regardless of impunity. We are immensely fortunate and privileged to live in an enlightened enough era where vague threats from organized religions lack their predecessors' medieval sting. These remnant admonitions can be regarded as valid pleas for temperance, where license to unscrupulous speech pervades, as requests for measured words and sensitivity, where the possibility of calumny exists. Since adherence to a minimal standard of decorum can, with some effort, be maintained, I prefer to exercise discernment rather than couch statements in vagueness. I prefer that to censuring myself for vain reasons, and until anyone can offer good reason for me not to, I will proceed unmuzzled with respectful and honest open inquiry. I will continue now with this reading of a very real letter, without editorializing, without withholding comment until I finish it. I was praying to God to liberate me from looking at women all day long as sexual objects. And God told me, "You speak nonsense. For this reason did I create women, for you to see them in that way. When you go home, undress, tell your wife to do likewise, and to assume the missionary position, and get busy." I make it sufficiently clear in the Holy Bible that a man has the responsibility of satisfying his woman. You must consider her a sexual object, otherwise she won't be happy. The letter ends here with the obvious implication that the divine mandate to sexualize his wife and follow through with the conjugal act will extinguish his extramarital intrigues. Yet a query arises, even to one unqualified to read the Bible either as literature or as the holy writ of God. A question nevertheless arises. Is there not some contradiction between God's reply to this man and God's scripture? What does God say regarding the writer's sexualization of women? For this reason did I create women, for you to see them in that way. It's abundantly clear from God's response that God intentionally designed man and woman in such a way that the man would view the woman as a sexual object, but then why does inspired scripture expressly forbid lust? We'll clarify the problem and the solution and call nothing into disrepute. Let's begin by revisiting the problem. Let's restate it. Day-long unbridled lust, sexualization of females, infatuation, and possibly, I give myself some license here, I would even go as far as to say most probably the inconvenience of trying to suppress public priapism. But why did sexual craving present a dilemma for this man? Considering that our writer fashions his beliefs, his hopes, and conduct on a book which expressly forbids lust and covetousness, he was pitting spiritual ideals against carnal wishes, and this created an internal conflict. There is, after all, sufficient biblical injunction prescribing lust. Let's look at Matthew 5:28. But I say, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust in his eye has already committed adultery with her in his heart. The penalty is likewise addressed. Job 31:11 through 12 reads, For lust is a shameful sin, a crime that should be punished. It is a devastating fire that destroys to hell. It would wipe out everything I own. Our writer attends to the sexual object of his burning desire and then feels the opposing tug from his code of conduct manual, which foretells the gruesome consequences of indulging in such momentum. His acquaintance with Scripture convicts him, though it proves ineffective in quenching or curbing his passions. It serves as a mild deterrent. So, he appeals to the author of the Bible, to God himself. He prays for God's intercession, and God offers him a simple solution. Go have sex with your wife. We are to assume that doing so will eliminate lust, his lust, for other women. The corollary is that man is governed by sexual desires, by sexual drives. Man is governed by his sexual drives. Why then would God design man in such a way so as to be prone to lust for other women, considering that coveting is declared unrighteous? It is sinful, nay, deadly. This and myriad of similar questions are laid to rest when one works in an unconventional pattern. It's a counterintuitive path which requires that one momentarily suspend the tendency to posture and postulate handicapped notions born out of this barren wanting to be right and wanting to prove the other wrong. This unconscious tendency of wanting to be right and wanting to be regarded as in the know is so pernicious that we easily jettison critical thinking faculties and our modesty in its service. Even people otherwise considered reasonably intelligent resort to the most ludicrous attempts at convincing others that they're wrong, as if that could mystically enjoin anyone to an opposing view being foisted on him. It makes no sense. The tendency rouses even the most phlegmatic of us to employ uncharacteristically aggressive tactics in defense of our closest and dearest and most cherished beliefs and values, which we've awarded diplomatic immunity to. This surreptitious and largely unconsciously driven tendency, which characterizes much of human conduct and our history, proves to have greater potential for sinister outcomes than even the deliberate subterfuge of veiled intentions could ever hope to have. Why? Because it proceeds from fear, born of ignorance. We possess negligible support for our claims to certainty. And when that's what we're fighting with and against, none's the wiser. To break free of this reactionary tendency, one must be courageous, willing, and willing to entertain the distinct possibility that he may be incorrect, and to concede that the other person may in fact be correct. This entails danger, for obvious reasons, but this is precisely the attitude that is required in order to permit a transcendent revelation from presenting itself to us. One that is uncalculated, not linearly strung along from one logically ascertained premise to another, but which arises spontaneously and most marvelously. This revelation subsumes all which precedes it. It lays the above questions to rest whilst fulfilling the efforts that one is so strongly inclined to make through the forceful misapplication of the limited instrument of thought. In terms of this man's specific predicament, the revelation would take the following form. God created man thusly in order that he forever be satisfying his wife, and in so doing preempt temptation for other women from overcoming him. This understanding does not proceed from inquiring as to how can that religion possibly serve the higher good. It proceeds from the acknowledgement that any religion, no matter how similar or dissimilar to the one we cherish, we uphold, we defend, or the only one that we are familiar with, has already served the higher good. That other religion has been rendered sufficient unto itself. This mental portal is not achieved through acceptance. It's not something one is going to attain through the exercise of tolerance. It is not brought about through intuition. It is not the result of insight. It is arrived at by surrender to truth, to the underlying truth of a religion so foreign to us. As to escape our comprehension. It requires a surrender to truth.